let's practice graphing a parabola. So we're given this equation of this parabola right now. Now you may notice pretty quickly this equation doesn't look a whole lot like either of these equations. So we're just going to take a moment to rewrite this. So it looks more like what we've got up here. Now, the only number I can put here that would simplify to just an x squared would be a plus 0. Or a minus 0, doesn't really matter. Because x plus 0 is the only thing that would simplify to x squared. Same thing for this y. If I wanted this to simplify to just negative 6 times y, only one I could have there is a plus 0. And that's what y plus 0 is, just y times by negative 6 gives me that. So now that I've got these labeled, I can see h with my x, k with my y. Notice for a moment, h always goes with your x value because h is the x value of the vertex point. And k always goes with your y value because k is the y value of the vertex point. And we also notice right here, that is going to be my 4p. So that is my lattice rectum width. So in having written it out like that, let's come back here and start to label everything we need. We need to know the vertex. We need to know p. We need to know the focus. We need to know the directrix. And we need to know the lattice rectum. Now, a couple of those we know already. The vertex we know is going to be at 0, 0, h, k. We also know the lattice rectum is going to be 6. Now, notice I dropped the negative. I don't need the negative because the lattice rectum is a distance, it's a width, and we never talk about negative distance. So because that lattice rectum is a distance from end to end of the parabola, we can just drop the negative. We don't need it. Now, a couple other things that I can figure out. I know that 4p equals 6, so then I can solve for just regular p. Notice once again I dropped the negative. That's because p is also a distance. Reminder right up here. P is the distance from the focus to the vertex and from the vertex to a directrix. So because p is also a distance, we don't need the negative there because we don't ever talk about negative distance. So I dropped the negative on the 6. Now I can solve for p. And I get that p equals 6/4 or 3/2 or 1.5. Now I'm actually going to come over here and start to graph what I have already. I know my vertex is at 0, 0. I know my p is 1.5. Now, however, before I graph my p, I need to know if this is an up or down parabola or a side-to-side parabola. If it's an up or down, then I do p 1.5 up and p 1.5 down. If it's a side-to-side parabola, I need to go p to the left, p to the right. So to know that, let's think of our chart that we drew. So in this equation, I have x squared, so that's either going to be up or down, and my 4p is negative. So that means this parabola is going to go down. So I'm going to make a little note here. I have an x squared and a negative 4p. So that means my parabola should be facing down. So now that I know that it's facing down, my p is going to go up and down. Up 1.5, down 1.5. Now for the focus, remember the focus must go inside the parabola, which means since my parabola faces down, my focus is going to be down here, and my directrix is going to be up here, because the directrix is always outside the parabola. Right there. And that's going to give me a downward facing parabola. Last thing I need is my latus rectum is 6 wide at the focus, so that's going to be 3 on each side. And then my parabola goes through the vertex and my latus rectum points. Now I can come back over here and finish labeling everything that I've got. My focus is a point, so my focus was at 0, negative 1.5, that point right there. My directrix is a line, which means my directrix should be either x equals or y equals. We can tell which one by which axis it crosses. This directrix crosses the y-axis, so it's going to be y equals, and then the point it crosses at is 1.5. And there you go. You have graphed your first parabola. We labeled all the things we needed to. We graphed all the things we needed to, and you are done. So with that in mind, let's try another one. Let's skip forward to example 2. Now that you've practiced one, I would like you to try this one. So here's our equation. You need to label our 5 things: vertex, P, focus, directrix, and latus rectum. You also need to come over here and say what direction our parabola is going to face based on the equation. So, having all of that and having practiced one already, I would like you to pause the video now, try this out on your own, and then come back to check and see how you did. Let's see how you did. So first thing, I rewrote this so that I could see my H always goes with X, and my K always goes with Y. So then I get my vertex of 0, 0. That number in front is my latus rectum, so that's 12. That also tells me that because the Y is squared and because my 4P, that 12 is positive, this parabola needs to face to the right. Then I put 4P equal to my 12 to get P is 3. And then I came over here and started graphing. I have my vertex in the middle. I went P to the right to do my focus, because the focus needs to be inside the parabola. And then P to the left to get my directrix, because the directrix needs to be outside the parabola. And then now that I have my focus, I could do my latus rectum, which should be 12 wide, so that would be 6 on each side. And then I can draw my parabola through the vertex and the latus rectum points. And to finish up, label my focus and my directrix. So let's try one more example before we move on to the next video and do some application problems with this. One more time, let's do example 3, where you pause the video, label all the things that you need to. Try this out on your own. And then come back to check your answer. So when you're ready, pause the video, try filling this out on your own using everything we've learned so far, and then come back to check and see how you did. Let's see how you did this time. I have my H always goes with X, and my K always goes with 8. There's my vertex, negative 1, 3, so I plotted that. My latus rectum is 8, so I put that there. I set that 8 equal to my 4P, so I could solve for P and get 2. Now I need to know what direction to take it, so I notice this is an x squared equation. My 4P is positive, which means this parabola should face up. So I go 2 up to get my focus, which is inside the parabola, and I went 2 down to get the directrix, which should be outside the parabola. Then, so I have my focus labeled, my directrix labeled. Last thing I had is my latus rectum should be 8 wide, so that's 4 on each side. And then I graphed my parabola and finally filled in where my focus was and where my directrix was. So that is all we're going to do with the basics of graphing today. For the rest of today's lesson, we're going to take these graphing skills and apply them to different kinds of application problems. So we're going to do some problems that are worded differently, some story problems, some complete the square problems, all of that. So join us in the next video to start those.